After experiencing the beauty of manual passing, I've switched to manual shooting about 2 months ago, hoping I would have mastered it by the time PES 2021 was out. But even after perfecting manual passing, which I highly recommend by the way, directing manual shots was a completely new level of challenging. And that was true even with seemingly easy bouncing balls on my striker's stronger foot. But as with most things, practice makes perfect, and it didn't take long before the manual screamers started pouring in. Now it's extremely difficult to learn, and I'll cover why, but with enough practice, you'll be able to score goals you rarely see with assisted shooting, and you'll truly get to enjoy this rendition of the beautiful game.
This is a welcome event. Goes for goal! Marvellous goal!
Let me start with a confession. Default assisted shooting in PES, whether it's basic or advanced, is only satisfying when it actually works.
Belt swap! Oh, he's hit the bar!
That is when the engine decides to reward you with a straight shot that won't randomly float over the bar. Which brings me to the biggest reason to switch to manual. I quickly discovered that my shots on manual were almost always straight, never too high and floaty, the way they used to be with assisted shooting.
It's close! Oh, brilliant!
The input I needed to put in to pull off a rising or dipping shot used to be very counterintuitive with assisted shooting. But on manual, if your player has the trait, whether it's a dipping or rising shot, this is the shot they will automatically use when they shoot, and this is the main reason I've stuck with manual shooting. I mean, look at this lovely Asensio rising shot using no extra inputs. As a result, manual shooting has a more level and satisfying feel. I also feel the ball speed on full manual corresponds better to real-life shooting. I think they made it this way to make low shots possible on manual when you underpower your shots. And yes, I've scored low shots on manual this way, and it feels way more rewarding than when I did it with advanced shooting. That doesn't mean you can't shank shots over the bar with an overpowered manual shot, especially if you're using your weaker foot, which makes the shot less forgiving for even a slightly overpowered manual shot. Here Bale keeps his weaker foot shot under control by not overpowering it. It really depends on how you're receiving the ball before taking the manual shot with the weaker foot. You also need to take your running momentum into consideration when powering up your manual shot. Do it right and you will be rewarded with the manual beauty of a goal. And while long rangers are technically more feasible on manual, you can't just shoot from anywhere and expect a banger. You also can't shoot at just any angle if the defender won't let you turn. And don't expect players who aren't good with shooting to suddenly score bangers. Your player's shooting stats definitely still matter. When you're not facing the goal, avoid overpowering your manual shot. Otherwise, it will just sail wide even if you get your angle right. Even Messi won't produce a banger with an off-balance, overpowered shot. I mean, look how much better Mane's similar shot is with only a slightly less powered up shot. And these are the very slim margins between two very similar shots that I'm talking about when attempting to describe how rewarding it is to score a full manual goal.
And he's Mbappe! Oh!
What actually makes it so rewarding is the extremely steep learning curve involved with manual shooting. The first reason behind the steep learning curve compared to manual passing is that you get to practice manual passing with every pass you make in the game towards the goal. These manual build-up passes happen a lot more frequently than the single shooting opportunity you might get at the end of each play. You can probably string over 10 manual passes together before getting a single opening for a shot on target. And when the ball is lost, you need to start all over again and work to get that shooting opportunity. As a result, you get used to manual passing a lot faster than with manual shooting. Secondly, the margin of error with directing manual passes is a lot more forgiving. I mean, Benzema can lay it off anywhere here between these angles, and Hazard will still get the ball. Compare that to manual shooting, where you have a very tight angle to aim your analog stick at before your shot goes off target. In this play, Modric is running head-on facing the goal. I have plenty of time to slightly move my stick towards the left post, but I still can't get it right. And coming fresh from assisted shooting, where you get used to moving your stick generously when aiming, expect to see extremely wild misses when you first embark onto this journey. I'm talking comically wide misses. I mean, at one point, I was so happy just getting my shots on target, period. And when I would pull off a series of difficult skills, I found myself aiming for the center to avoid wasting the play. It's just painful to pull off an impressive trick, then tilt my stick a little too far off target when trying to aim around the keeper. And it felt just as bad after pulling off a lovely manual lob into the box. So I just found myself going for the center of the goal to avoid wasting all those beautiful manual through passes. Because even if I had all the time in the world to aim my shot, tilting the stick slightly away from the center of the goal can translate into a much bigger change in the outcome. But even if your manual shot is well directed to the sides of the goal, you have to deal with the excellent keepers in PES this year, which makes your job even more challenging, especially against top-tier teams. Hitting a manual shot on target and around the keeper is simply not a guarantee that you'll score. The third difference compared to manual passing is that your receiving player will move towards the manual pass you've placed, regardless of where it goes. Actually, your player will move to the ball a lot faster than the opponent marking him. This makes you care less about the exact placement of most of your manual passes, because so long as it's into an empty space, your player will move to the ball. Unless you're trying to thread a pass through a defense, which is very rewarding to pull off. But otherwise, with manual passing, receivers will go to the ball, making your life a lot easier. But the goal, on the other hand, will not move towards your manual shot. This means you need every bit of accuracy to get your shot exactly where you want it. Finally, with manual passing, you usually have plenty of time to accurately aim your stick in the direction you choose. But with manual shooting, the opportunity to shoot, especially on Superstar, is so slim that you have very little time to accurately aim in that already unforgivably small target. This is actually quite realistic. Like here, Benzema barely has time to turn and aim. And as in real life, you sometimes just aim at the goal and hope for the best. I did find that most of my goals on full manual involved having more time to properly aim my shot.
It's Firmino!
And this here is my first goal on full manual. Notice how much time I had to modify my aim relative to the direction of my run. As a matter of fact, it's always easier when you don't have to aim at all and just shot through the direction of your run. But even those shots along the same direction weren't easy when I first started. And as in real life, I usually require many manual shooting attempts in the beginning of a game before getting my angles right. This adds another layer of realism to the game and makes the goals you score on full manual shooting a lot more rewarding. So let's see how Cruz fares on his third attempt. And this is actually what I love the most about the realism of manual controls in general. There's an element of trial and error which realistically builds up the necessary experience needed for you to manually deliver a ball to your striker. Speaking of realism, remember all those long-range assisted curlers in my previous videos? These used to be my most commonly scored goals in PES. Every video I made had comments about how easy pulling off long-range assisted finesse shots looked like in my videos. I mean, you can even argue that they were as easy as scoring a free kick in PES.
Oh, it really is a finish of the highest order.
And you know what? You guys were right. The long-range assisted finesse shots were too easy to pull off. I mean, Firmino isn't even using his stronger foot here. Sadly, on manual controls, finesse shots are borderline impossible to pull off. It doesn't matter which player you're controlling.
Oh, that's a waste. Well,
Whether it's Messi or Salah using their stronger foot from an easy angle, it just refuses to happen. As a matter of fact, any shot that requires not just an extra button to press, but also a need to compensate for the swerve in your shot, is just too much thinking you won't be afforded against a superstar opponent on full manual. And even when I'm afforded the time to figure it out, I couldn't score a single manual finesse. Even in training and on Salah's stronger foot. And I'm not even changing my stick's direction. Look how wildly off target a manual finesse is produced. So when I began to overcompensate for the swerve, I started getting closer and closer. I will post a tutorial if I ever get manual finesse shots nailed down, but I honestly feel it shouldn't be this hard. Eventually, I started aiming for the center. Then I started shooting straight in situations where I should have gone for a finesse, because it was easier without the extra buttons and adjustments, albeit the wrong shot to take. And here I actually got the angle right but forgot to press the finesse button. It's just too many things to juggle given the short time you'll have to make your manual shot. And I'm not even mentioning the times the ball didn't spin even though I'm confident I had the right input. Really, any shot that requires an extra command is challenging on full manual, even if it's a simple ship shot, which is actually realistic because those shots are special in real life too and require a little extra thinking. You end up either messing up the power bar part, or the timing of the shot. Or sometimes the timing and power are right, but your direction is ever so slightly off target. Most times I ended up calculating for too long with no time to actually pull it off. Out of frustration, I'd go for a regular shot when I should have chipped the keeper. And you know what? Sometimes that worked and I was able to squeeze it in. But with practice, yes, I was able to score a few chipped shots, but they were all these same short chips over the keeper using a highly rated player with excellent ball control. I mean, with enough time, you can score long-range manual chip shots, but they were nowhere as easy as they were on assisted shooting.
uses to be and the shot. He scored.
Now I want to talk about this realistic modded broadcast camera angle and how it makes manual shooting 100 times harder, especially the closer you get to the goal as the camera starts to skew. Things were already hard enough when I was directly facing the goal. Imagine how harder it would be when you were coming in from the sides. I mean, imagine how I felt when I pulled off this sexy nutmeg before messing up the finishing. And some of these stadiums have low views, making it even harder to aim your shots when you're on the far side. Especially that finesse shots are not really an option, at least not at my current stage. I tried doing this thing where I shoot in the direction of my run, but it's not that simple, albeit a good technique in my earlier days.
It's Modric. It's Modric!
There seems to be a need to overcompensate when aiming. Like here, I was actually aiming for the far angle. I actually found it easier to aim the further I was from the goal, because it was harder to mess up subtle movement of the analog stick. But eventually, I learned to power up first, then calmly change my aim. Another way to do it is to modify your aiming trajectory according to the direction of your run.
Strikers getting behind, but Messi! It's it!
Speaking of getting better with practice, I mentioned in my manual passing video how challenging I found manual crossing to be.
Early ball.
Well, after plenty of practice with manual passing, I'm back in love with crossing, but my new problem is getting those manual headers in. Like everything else, it's only a matter of time before I get the angles right. But I feel that getting the crosses right was the difficult part, to be honest. and now I'm able to reliably deliver the ball to my striker's head. But again, the stellar keepers aren't making my life any easier. That said, I feel like it's the most satisfying play to watch unfold in PES. And there were several moments where I thought I would finally get a header in. And while I did eventually score from a manual cross, it was off this beautiful manual volley. I actually did score a manual header from open play once, but it was an own goal, so yeah. Corners were a completely different issue altogether. I had no idea why easy headers with good heading players would consistently keep sailing over the bar. Even Mane's karate skills were no match for this weird bug. The same issue plagued my headers off free kicks into the box. I tried that technique where you fill the power bar all the way while pressing upwards, and I did have some success with it, being able to finally aim lower, and eventually scoring my first manual header off of it. But sometimes it didn't work, and that was frustrating. Eventually I moved back to my standard corner technique, powered to 3/4 of the bar, which Matip beautifully converts here.
Massive leap!
I think I've actually scored an equal number of AI own goals off corners. I mean, look at this really tight defensive AI header. Before I leave the topic of crossing, you've already seen this lovely scissor kick in the intro. Now, because of the more random nature of a manual cross, I found the ball landing more frequently behind my strikers, triggering a pleasantly high proportion of backward kicks. I found them surprisingly easier to aim than with headers. And honestly, this alone made manual crossing worth all the practice in my book. And the same way manual passing triggers a whole new set of animations to accommodate all those last-second passes in any direction, which I discussed in my manual passing video, with manual shooting, you can trigger a sudden clearance animation. You can even trigger a shot on your way down after tripping onto a player's foot. You can actually trigger a shot from any position really, which means even more bicycle kicks. Since I've moved to manual shooting, I've seen trajectories that assisted shooting won't even allow. For instance, assisted shooting tends to shoot through a gap, but on manual, I can randomly hit this player's knee by mistake. While in this one, I'm just aiming through the gap and hoping for the best. With manual shooting, my decision making is more realistic, knowing that the game won't help me hit the target. So here, I feel that passing back to Suarez down the middle would be easier than taking a shot from this angle. While in this play, it's the last few seconds and I can't risk missing the target, so I just go for the center. And here, I make sure I bring the ball on Isco's stronger foot before taking my shot. Now compare that kind of diligence to my assisted shooting days, when I dare take a long-range finesse shot with a player's weaker left foot and score with my stick all the way to the left. Finally, as I did in my manual passing video, let me review the AI's behavior on manual shooting. I actually feel like their shots are more frequently towards the center of the goal in a realistic way. This was similar to the way I aim most of the time on full manual, to avoid a wide miss. Speaking of wide misses, I'm pretty sure I didn't see the superstar AI miss so widely before I switched to manual shooting. That included shots with the goal wide open, and similar to how I aimed my volleys to the center of the goal, the AI was more likely to do the same with their volleys. And even the AI's headers missed the target in a way that reminded me of my own misses when I'd forget to aim. Players miss realistically too, like Sterling here. Fine, I'm being too cruel and he's been through enough. Back to the AI, even when they scored, I felt the ball trajectory to be a lot more varied and random than it used to be on assisted shooting, and it looked too similar to my goals on manual shooting. I mean, look here at this finish through Courtois' legs. I don't remember seeing many of those before I made the switch. or this Suarez header to the ground and off the post. That all said, when the script wants the AI to score, it'll still score through the tightest of angles. So take it easy and start with manual passing. Watch my video on the beauty of manual passing if you're not sold on it yet. And you know what? You can technically manually pass the ball into the opponent's goal. Or into your own goal for that matter. You can also do things with manual passing, like pass the ball to yourself, because PES doesn't have the triple tap sprint that FIFA does, and I recently made a video about that. And as you transition to manual shooting, my advice is to first focus on getting your shots on target, before attempting to aim around the keeper. And just take your shots at the beginning instead of going for a manual finesse. Also, remember that I'm having a harder time than most because of my realistic broadcast camera angle. But with enough practice I got used to it, and was able to link amazing manual passes to manual chip shots in no time. I've been playing football games for 30 years, and I actually made a video about that journey across the different console generations, platforms, and game franchises. I'll leave a link to this video in the description. But switching to manual passing and shooting is easily the most rewarding gameplay change I've experienced playing football games throughout all those years. So how do you switch to manual? At the side select screen, press the X to edit personal data, then set your pass support level to off and your shot type to manual. And that's it! This video was made possible thanks to the generosity of my Patreons who are seeing this video earlier after getting a behind the scenes look at its making. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Knightmd1 or on Instagram, and soon on Twitch when I'm good enough to play live. So thanks for sticking around, and see you in the next one.